Okay, the next part is hooking up our fan assembly. You're going to have a couple pieces here. You're going to have the fan assembly itself. If you look inside, that's your actual fan. You can see it spinning around. And then housing. We have a top plate that you can take off to access your fan if you ever need to. And then the exhaust. This is where the sample that is measuring all the emissions from animals comes from. So we're going to have to hook that up. We're going to hook up our power connector and this elbow. Now this elbow, if you can visualize, this is how it's going to sit on top of the unit. We don't want emissions going out where the animals are, because that can come right back into the unit, and we don't want to measure those emissions again. So we're going to install an elbow. So I'm just going to kind of sit it right there. I'm not going to fully seat it yet. I want to check it once I get it on the unit itself. So just like with our chimney and our conduit assembly, this is a friction fit. I'm just going to sit down on top. There's nothing else that secures it. I'm just going to kind of get everything straight. Push down until it stops. This, like I pointed out earlier, these holes, it doesn't matter which direction it's going to get the air that passes through. This is already set. This is a compression fitting, and so all you have to do is slide it in, turn that down, and using a 9/16 wrench, I'm just going to tighten it. You don't need to over tighten it. Once you start feeling some decent resistance, you can stop. Right there. And I'm just going to check the other side just to make sure while I'm here. And now I know that it's locked. The next thing I'm going to do is hook up my power connector, and it's a Molex, so it has that white tab. I'm just going to line everything up. Make sure I hear that audible click once it's seated, and then push this down. Now this portion here, this is for a weather station if you have one, and we're gonna feed our cable through here in this junction box. But for now, the fan assembly is installed. So the next part that we're gonna put on is our airflow meter, or our air velocity sensor. The first thing that we're going to do once we get the sensor unpackaged is take this protective cover off. This is where our sensor actually measures the airflows on this filament. The next part you're going to look at is we have two spacers here. This helps line up which way this goes. It goes in a very specific orientation. So you have a little bit longer spacer and a shorter one, and I'll show you that in a second. This is where our wires are going to go in. To hook up our wires, we're going to have to take this cover off. So just using a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, we're just going to turn these screws a quarter of a turn. They're spring assisted. So a quarter of a turn, and then this cover is free to take off. One thing on the cover we're going to look at here is we have a 1, 2, and 3, red, black, and white. That lines up with how you hook up your wires. So 1, 2, and 3, red is your voltage, that's your power wire. 2 is ground, that's your black wire. And 3 is AV, that is your signal wire, and that is white. So I'm just going to hold on to this for now. What you'll need is a common flat blade screwdriver that's provided in your toolkit to turn these screws to hold the wires in place. And I'm just going to back them out just a little bit. That way my wires will go inside in here. And these are fully open. You can see this one is a little bit more open than these. It's a metallic type clamp. So once you screw it down, it provides a good contact for the wire. Another thing to note on here is anytime you look at this on the inside of this, if you're cleaning it or if it's for an install or you're removing it to transport the unit somewhere, these are shunts that need to be installed in a very specific way for the airflow sensor to work right. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, T90, high, and U. Make sure that they're installed, and make sure that they're installed on the right terminal. So T90, high, and U. So you'll probably need a ladder. Install this. So the proper orientation is this white gland needs to point towards this junction where the wires are coming up. This gland you'll need to loosen, and if you kind of look in there, this is a good tutorial on how a gland works. As I turn this clockwise, you can see the diameter of this, and that's what clamps down on the wires, or in our case, this probe. So I'm going to loosen this all the way. Now I have my white gland pointing the right way. Just be very careful. And it's going to sit just like that. Once my spacers are up tight against my chimney assembly, I can tighten this gland. You don't have to over tighten it. Just tighten until you get some resistance, and then pull back, and I can tell that it's completely secure. The next part is going to be putting my wires through this gland. So I'm just going to put it through like this. I'm not going to tighten this just yet. I want to get my wires in the right location. You can see I stuck all 3 wires in at the same time. So I'm going to kind of push in the red wire, tighten it down until it stops. Push in the black wire. And then I'm going to push in the white wire. The little blue parts at the end of the wires are called ferrules, and it's a better connection once you put these in. So once I get all 3 secure, I have them fully inserted. That means I can't see the metal point of the ferrule, so they're fully engaged with the terminal. Then I can go through and do my final tightening. And don't over tighten them, just make sure it's nice and secure and you've got some pretty significant resistance. And then I'm going to pull on each individual wire. Not hard, just a little bit of a tug, just to make sure that it doesn't come out. Now my airflow sensor is hooked up. So I'm going to tighten this gland. I know it's tight because my wire won't pull through. I'm going to check this gland to make sure it's secure. And then I can get my Phillips screwdriver and put my cover back on. This one you have to put some positive pressure on it like that, and then turn. Now my airflow sensor is completely installed.